It was not meant to be a moment. It was meant to be filler, and that is what no one admits. NBC did not schedule Caitlin Clark's live appearance to change basketball. It was not promoted as historic or presented as a takeover. It was placed as something that would pass, a short segment with a few questions before returning to normal coverage. But the moment she went live, something shifted. You could feel it immediately. The pace changed, the room focused, and the conversation stopped being polite. Before anyone could react, Caitlin Clark took control of the screen, not by raising her voice or trying to prove anything, but by being prepared. She broke down plays faster than analysts expected, read coverages before clips finished, and spoke about spacing, tempo, and decisions with complete confidence. That was when the numbers started moving. Viewership did not rise slowly, it jumped. Live metrics surged during her segment, social feeds exploded, and clips spread before the broadcast ended. People who were not watching joined in, and that was when the discomfort began.
Say that Clark, the Indiana Fever star with an enormous following within the game, is joining the network's pregame coverage for its debut of Sunday Night Basketball this weekend when the Los Angeles Lakers play the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden. The debut. They picked her to kick it off. Not, yeah, it'll do a couple weeks and then you'll come in. No. We need you to launch this thing, dude.
Because this was no longer just a women's basketball audience. It was everyone, NBA fans, casual viewers, and people who cared only about moments, and Caitlin Clark created one without trying. Inside the broadcast, reactions were subtle, a raised eyebrow, a brief pause, a smile that did not hide the surprise. Behind the scenes, according to those familiar with the situation, phones began buzzing immediately. Executives noticed, producers noticed, sponsors noticed, and players noticed because this was not just exposure, it was elevation. For years, players were told the same message, that the league would grow together, that no single name should rise above the rest, and that attention would be shared evenly. But what happened on live television broke that idea.
I think Caitlin Clark actually, in fact, shouldn't have been the number one overall pick, and, all of this stuff, like if you weren't 100% anti-Caitlin Clark, there was something wrong with you. At least the general media aren't necessarily like that anymore. The WNBA media absolutely are. Absolutely are. Like, we've still... The phrase "the Fever are better without Caitlin Clark" is one that was used by commentators. Like, to be fair, at least no one's gone full Sheryl Swoops.
Caitlin Clark was no longer treated as part of a group. She was treated as the centerpiece. And that is where tension began, because attention is power, and power creates friction. Within hours, reactions appeared indirectly, not through official statements or press conferences, but through silence where praise was expected, sharp comments from those who felt threatened, and defensive energy that did not match the moment.
What you did with it? I'm good here. They go and get Caitlin Clark, making her debut as an analyst on TV. Let's take a look at the article, shall we? Caitlin Clark joined Sunday Night Basketball for 2 NBA games. Caitlin Clark is headed to the NBA, at least for a couple of nights. NBC announced Tuesday that Clark, the Indiana Fever star with an enormous following within the game, is joining the network's pregame coverage for its debut of Sunday Night Basketball this weekend when the Los Angeles Lakers play the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden. The debut.
The phrase Caitlin effect began trending again, but this time it meant something different. This was not about ticket sales, it was about credibility. Once someone proves they can hold a national audience live without controversy, gimmicks, or support, they cannot be seen as just another player, and that became impossible to ignore. That is when frustration began to rise, not from fans but from inside the basketball world. As reports suggested, tension grew quickly. Some players felt unprepared, others felt overshadowed, and some felt exposed because the segment did not only highlight Caitlin Clark, it showed who was not ready for that moment, and readiness matters when the spotlight is unforgiving. Meanwhile, Caitlin remained silent. No responses, no interviews, no celebration. And that silence spoke louder than words because it allowed others to reveal themselves. Within days, debates started about fairness, favoritism, and whether NBC was shaping a narrative, but the reality was clear. NBC did not create the reaction, viewers did. The network followed engagement, retention, and clicks, and the numbers were clear. Her segment outperformed others, her clips spread faster, and her analysis held attention. That was not bias, it was demand, and demand unsettles those who do not control it. As her presence grew, something else happened quietly. Fans noticed who was missing, not just on screen but in conversations. Some voices faded, some names stopped trending, and when attention shifts, it moves without asking. Within league circles, this raised difficult questions about coverage, audience choices, and what happens when one player becomes unavoidable. Because when that happens, control shifts, and control matters. Reports suggested internal discussions became tense, messaging became cautious, appearances were reconsidered, and language changed, but the impact had already occurred because Caitlin Clark did not just go viral, she changed expectations. Fans no longer
Aaron Boone, Yankees, America's team. The Phillies gave Clark rave reviews and even invited her to come try it for real, and now NBC is giving her that opportunity as well. She's going to be in a basketball arena, like she always is, and in her comfort zone, which is on the court talking about the sport she loves and the sport that she shines in. Of course, they're going to be breaking down what they expect these teams to do. Lakers Knicks, I believe, is the first game. It would be nice if they kind of do like the little roles that they do on the court. Okay, I'll play LeBron James, you play Austin Reeves, you play Luka, you play Rue.
They wanted the truth about who drives attention. And once fans decide that, leagues have no control. The backlash was not loud at first. It was subtle, unfollows, disengagement, and hostile comments. Then it intensified into criticism of leadership, claims of mismanagement, and questions about priorities, shifting the conversation away from Caitlin Clark to why it took so long. Why a moment like this happened by chance, and why the system is slow to recognize its own stars. This is when pressure builds, because leagues can survive controversy but struggle with poor judgment, especially when audiences feel more aware than decision makers. And that is what happened. Caitlin Clark did not embarrass anyone. She revealed the gap between preparation and expectation, between relevance and routine, between those who command attention and those who expect it. And once that gap appears, it does not fade quietly. NBC moved forward and the broadcast ended, but the impact remained. Every appearance after was compared, every segment without her felt weaker, and every debate returned to the same question. Why does she stand out? The answer is simple: she treats the game with importance, not just the plays but the presentation, explanation, and responsibility, and that is what viewers recognized. It unsettled many because when someone is prepared for the biggest stage, it exposes excuses, and excuses do not last. This was not a planned takeover, it happened naturally. NBC did not intend disruption, but when Caitlin Clark stepped in, she fit perfectly. And that changed everything because the audience saw what was possible. They saw her lead the moment, explain the game, and hold attention naturally, and once seen, it cannot be reversed. That is why this moment matters, not for drama but for what it revealed, the weakness of old ideas that exposure could be controlled, attention limited, and stars contained. Caitlin Clark did not break the system, she showed how close it was to.
Again, if Caitlin Clark doesn't play basketball this season, Caitlin Clark will literally go. Her career will have ended at 23 years old, which is crazy because let's be real. As relevant as Caitlin Clark is, how many people are going to be watching Caitlin Clark every single game in in Turkey? How many people are going to be watching at 2 p.m. on a Monday every single Caitlin Clark game in America? Very few because, it clashes. And as much as people want to watch Caitlin Clark, do people want to watch, it's the relevancy is going to die.
But no one was indifferent, and in media indifference is the only real enemy. This was not just a viral moment, it was a shift, and shifts do not ask permission. They happen whether people are ready.